Hi, I'm Brittany Hall, a program coordinator at Yukon Extension Solid Ground. We are funded through a program from the USDA BFRDP, and today we are talking about wash stations on farms and how farmers use DIY to create and put together wash stations that work for their operations. This is another installment of our DIY video series. We are here at Muddy Roots Farm talking about their wash station setup. So, Chris, could you tell me a bit about Muddy Roots Farm, what you produce, and how folks can find your products?
Sure. So we're a very diversified farm. We focus probably half our energy goes into pastured poultry and forest-raised pork, and then the other half is veg. Small scale veg, kind of market garden style setup. We do one fairly large farmers market and have a couple restaurant accounts, and that's basically kind of where all of our produce ends up.
So we're going to be talking about your wash station. Can you tell me a bit about when you were planning this, what were the things that you needed to have and things that you were like, actually I don't need that?
We got the rare opportunity as a farmer to start over after quite a few years and correct a lot of those design flaws that most farmers make early on. One of which was the design of our greenhouse space vegetable production wash pack. So the theory of that design is everything comes out of the greenhouse as a seedling, goes right into the field, and then everything coming out of the field post-harvest goes right to our wash pack, which is also situated right next to our cold storage. Just super efficient, saving steps. Yeah, the design part of a wash pack, in my opinion, is huge. You don't want it far from your water source, from your cooler, from your field, etc.
So what kind of crops are you bringing in from the field to the wash station, and then what were the things that you needed to have?
The crops that we find ourselves washing the most are the root crops, anything from the soil really, carrots, beets, parsnips, turnips, radish, salad greens. The key components, I think, to any wash pack are having good stainless steel sinks, any sort of basin really that you can soak something in, and plenty of hoses to spray stuff off with, more hoses than you think you'll ever need. We kind of took the plunge and jumped into the Michael Kilpatrick greens bubbler and salad spinner plans and built out those two items, which have been huge as far as cut greens go. We can process so much more salad greens so much faster than we could in the past, and it produces a much better product. It lasts longer in our customers' fridge or in the restaurant's walk-ins.
Was there a guide or anything? I know you mentioned Michael Kilpatrick. Was there anything else that you used or instructions that you found online that were helpful, or you just kind of went for it?
I think what most of us do is we read all the books, we watch all the YouTube videos, and then we kind of come up with this formula for our own context. So that's kind of what we did, using JM's design thing with the efficiency and the proximity to our growing space, proximity to a cooler. Do
you have an idea of what the total project cost was after you kind of got everything together the second time around?
If I had to put a number on it, I would say $3,000 to $5,000.
Yeah. What was the biggest cost there for you?
I would say the cooler body that came off a truck, and then running power and water out here. That's something I think a lot of people don't consider.
Yes.
Electricians and plumbers aren't cheap. If you can do it yourself, you're still renting equipment, etc., and that stuff adds up pretty quick.
So how long and how much person power did it take to do this? Was it just you? Did you have a team or some volunteers?
Yeah, it was mostly me, just over the winter project time.
You're using this space basically the growing season, and then it kind of takes a break.
Correct.
In the winter. Is there anything special you have to do to winterize?
Yeah, just blow out all the water lines, especially the little valves and stuff. We'll take those off at the end of the season to make sure all the water's out of them.
Yeah.
Because they'll surprise you in the spring.
Yeah. Was there anything that didn't go as expected while you were putting this together that you were surprised or a little bit dismayed by?
There was a couple issues with the greens bubbler that we didn't foresee. We have to put a counterweight on one end of it because once it starts pressurizing and pushing air, it wants to tip over. So on all of the sink basins, we have things that it's a device that once the water level hits a certain point, it shuts off automatically, so you can walk away from it. They have a little screen filter in there, and that ended up getting clogged up really quick, and I was wondering why there's no water pressure. That was the only thing I could come up with for that. So we pulled all those screens, and now it works great.
And so the materials that you use, did you mostly get them at the hardware store, or are they recycled?
Yeah, either, you know, the irrigation supplies and the hose supplies, we get a lot of that through Rainflow or Dripworks or one of those companies. But everything else, pretty much local hardware store. Things, those devices that stop the water are off Amazon.
Is there anything you would avoid doing if you did this again, like that you kind of learned the hard way, or would you just kind of do it all the same?
I would do a better job understanding how all these basins full of water are going to drain. Especially the greens bubbler. Build in either some sort of a curtain drain around your wash pack or something that can really absorb a lot of water quickly, so you're not standing in mud. So right now, the way we deal with that, this is kind of the first try at directing that water away from places that we're going to be working. None of this is permanent, obviously, the greens bubbler and the spinner. So that's something we're going to work on in the future, is getting some sort of flexible pipe that can redirect that. I mean, it's 150 gallons of water. For the time being, we've been just dumping it into that grass area, but a lot of people don't have a big space that can take that amount of water. And again, you don't want to create erosion, and you don't want to be working in the mud. So,
have you seen much erosion because of that?
Yes. Yep.
I know that we're not quite in the season yet, but could you just kind of walk us through how things come in from the field right here, and then like if they were, say, greens or something, and then how you would, you know, do that to get them then into your cooler?
Sure. So first thing is, this is normally covered during the season with either market tents or some sort of a canopy, so that you can get those greens in the shade immediately. Sometimes we'll just throw them right in the cooler if we're not ready. I try to get this whole space set up before I even start cutting greens. So I'll have the scale ready, I'll have my bags ready, I'll have all the crates that they're gonna the black bulb crates that they're gonna end up in ready. We harvest the greens into these guys. All the big produce suppliers sell them. They actually came from the seafood industry, and they're really hardy. So we harvest them into these. These will get dumped right into the greens bubbler, and then we plug in the hot tub blower, and it bubbles everything around. I have to use my hands a little bit to make sure everything is kind of getting mixed together. That's another function of the greens bubbler, is if you're harvesting different types of greens for your salad mix, this does a great job at incorporating all of them together. They go from the greens bubbler into the same type of basket, but because of the washing machine that I used, I had to kind of recess the center with just a PVC cap, and that sits right inside the basin for the washing machine. We usually do 2 rounds at about 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes. And that's it. So we'll spin them 1 round, kind of shake them around a little bit, spin them again, and then they go right from that bin onto the table with the scale and the bags, and they go right into bags. We sell them in half-pound bags. And that's pretty much the entire process. Definitely a game changer. It produces a much better product. It does get all the dirt off if you're harvesting after a heavy rain, bugs it gets off, and it allows you to kind of go through and see if there's any, you know, if you're on second cut or third cut of a salad mix, you'll get some of those burnt ends, you know, or the dead stuff in there, and that kind of allows you to go through and pick it out, which is handy also. In your original setup, you were using hoses to kind of bring water to your wash station setup. So in this one, you said you brought the plumbing in, which is very expensive, but you were able to have your main water line right here. So can you tell me how that's been a bit of a game changer, or how that's been different for you guys? Sure. I think any project on farms that you can isolate things, especially water, is huge. If you're ever repairing something or fixing something, you can just turn off a valve. For each one of our field quadrants, they all have their own valve, so we can identify it, shut it off, isolate it, fix it, whatever you need to do. On this particular one, I just broke up the plumbing for the 2 hoses that we use, and then the plumbing for the sink, the autofill sink valves. And it's it's all really, really simple, fairly inexpensive.
When you did this, did you have to worry anything about water pressure? Because I know you've got like a number of taps.
Most of this hardware infrastructure stuff is rated to whatever your pressure of your well is normally going to be. I could see a reason if somebody had a really high pressure well to use a pressure reducer or something like that. Like you would going into the field, you're dropping everything down to 12 or 15 pounds. But here we didn't have to worry about it. You actually want the pressure on the hoses to blast off the carrots and the beets and whatnot. So there is a need for it. But yeah, we never really ran into any pressure issues.
Could you just real quick tell me where you got everything from your washer to your tubs to your really very nice stainless steel sinks?
You don't need new stuff. You don't need fancy stuff. Both of these two stainless steel sinks came from other farms. Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. If you know how to kind of peruse the auction sites, those are also very, very handy to save some money. As far as the plumbing stuff goes, I would buy that new though.
Yeah. And did you get your washing machine online? Did you find it on the side of the road?
No, that was Facebook, because in Michael Kilpatrick's plans, he has a spreadsheet of what models, makes and models you can use for that kit. So there's there's probably 10 or 12 of them. So that came off either Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist.
And you just mentioned something about the plumbing and the importance of having those auto stops on there and how this one does not yet have one. Can you talk about why that's been important?
Yeah, so when you're doing market prep or you're doing a big harvest, all those seconds count, all those minutes count, all those steps count. There's nothing worse than being a farmer thinking of your to-do list for that day and standing there with a hose in your hand waiting for a tank to fill up. So anytime you can build something where you can turn it on and walk away and know that when you come back it's ready to go is an awesome investment.
What are the next steps? Is there anything you're thinking of adding to your setup that you currently have?
So one of the big things we're going to do is put up kind of a semi-permanent canopy over this space. In the past, we were putting up and taking down our market tents. If there's any inclement weather, it gets kind of dicey up here with the wind. So we kind of had to babysit those. The other thing I think we're going to add is some sort of a hand washing sink. I think that's an important part also. You can get away with it with hoses and stuff and a teammate to help you, but I think that's an important thing to add to a wash pack.
Do you have any advice for any farmers who are currently building or are looking to make plans to build their own wash station on their farm?
There's a lot of ways to do it inexpensively, and there's a lot of draw to think you need to build either a fancy setup or think you need a greens bubbler and a green spinner right off the bat. You may not. We just started using the greens setup 2 seasons ago, and we've been doing greens for a while, but that time growing into your wash pack and learning those things that you do and don't need is very, very important in my opinion.